program, I will just repeat how you can take the floor. And this is very simple. You just press your button, and you don't need to do anything else unless you took a floor by mistake. Then you press it again, and you will be off the list. You will see on your mics, when you have requested for the floor, a green light. And then when it will be your turn to speak, the green light will start blinking. That's just for you to be aware that you will now get the mic. You don't need to do anything. And then the microphone will turn red. And also, it will, when you finish, it will be switched off by our team automatically. So you don't need to press anything. I hope that's okay. Now, before we start our formal deliberations now, under our agenda items, I wish to note that all of us in the IWC community were impacted by one or another way by the pandemic. Sadly, some of our colleagues passed away, and some of us lost friends and family members. Let's take 1 minute of silence to remember those persons. Thank you. We have a challenging meeting in front of us, as we didn't meet for 4 years. So I kindly ask you for cooperation and effective work so that we can handle well all our agenda items in the next 5 days. Now, the next item on the agenda is meeting arrangements. And there, the item is Commission discussion on voting rights raised at the virtual special meeting in 2021 and action arising. Now, at the virtual special meeting of the Commission in September 2021, the commissioners discussed the issue of suspension of voting rights of countries who are in arrears, and following was agreed. The Commission acknowledges the fiscal changes of the pandemic on contracting governments, especially developing countries. The Commission instructs the co-chairs of the Working Group on Operational Effectiveness to develop options for possible change to our existing rules of procedure on the link between financial status and voting rights. We request that a document is developed that considers alternative rules for voting in emergency situations, one being the COVID-19 pandemic, in relation to payment of contributions used by other multilateral agreements. The document will be considered as a first order of business at the IWC68 to ensure it has been considered before any other issue arises that might require a vote. Commission agrees not to hold any votes until this matter is brought for resolution before the Commission or at or before IWC. Now we are at the IWC68, and that's the first item we are working on. Now, the Working Group on Operational Effectiveness developed 3 options, and you see the document on the screen, I mean the abbreviation, the FA IWC68/4.1.1/01. So with regards to voting rights for this meeting and for the longer term. So for this meeting and for the longer term. Document with these options was made available 60 days before the start of the plenary in all 3 languages and put on the web page of this meeting. Working group on operational effectiveness met lastly on Thursday and recommended the Finance and Administration Committee endorse option 1. Finance and Administration Committee Chair concluded that there was a broad support for option 1 and the intent behind it. And the private commissioners meeting yesterday evening reached consensus on this option. On the screen, you will see proposed changes of this option to the rules of procedure and financial regulations from that option. What you see on the screen is what is in the document. I will now read the proposed changes under the option 1 for voting rights, so that translators can also translate it to French and Spanish. I will read essential parts. So financial rules F, arrears of contributions. Point 2, if a contracting government's annual payments, including any interest due, have not been received by the Commission by the earliest of those dates, I will not read the dates, the right to vote of the contracting government concerned shall be suspended as provided under Rule E2 of the Rules of Procedure. And now the change comes, unless the Commission decides otherwise in the case of exceptional circumstances. Now the Rule A2 of Rules of Procedure. Point 2A. The right to vote of representatives of any contracting government shall be suspended automatically when the annual payment of a contracting government, including any interest due, has not been received by the Commission by the earliest of these dates. I will not read that point. The suspension of voting rights applies until payment is received by the Commission, and now the change, unless the Commission decides otherwise in the case of exceptional circumstances. Option 1 also stipulates, and that's the text that I read from that option, that to ensure contracting governments severely affected by the COVID-19 pandemic are not disadvantaged in decision-making at IWC68, the Commission will, for IWC68 only, temporarily reinstate or just right to vote for all contracting governments in arrears for 3 or less years, i.e. did not met their annual payments for 2020, 21, 22 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. As commissioners have agreed with this option on consensual basis, I take this proposal here adopted. I also declare that the global COVID-19 pandemic constitutes exceptional circumstances. So if this is agreed for this meeting, then those countries now have the voting right. And we continue this agenda item. There was no agreement on the option 2 and 3. and it was proposed that it is dealt with in the intersessional period and dealt with at this meeting under the agenda item 5, working group on operational effectiveness. With this, we could actually conclude this agenda item. I see no objection. So let us move to the agenda item 1.4, Secretary's report on credentials and voting rights. The Executive Secretary will report on the status of credentials as requested under Rule of Procedure D.1d. The Secretariat will also report on any current Secretariat will not report on any current suspensions because we have just gave voting rights for those who didn't pay in 2020, 21, and 22. So Secretariat will just report on the rest. Thank you. I invite the Executive Secretary to report on the status of credentials.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning again, everyone. This is again a moving target. So many delegations have just arrived and we're doing the count. And of course, we just 30 seconds ago had a change in the number. But I can tell you, as of about half an hour ago, 54 contracting governments are here. We have 6 who have registered and have yet to arrive. And we know that 28 are not attending. Of those who are in attendance, 5 countries will need a little more work on their credentials. And Mr. Chair, I wish to thank the governments of Morocco and New Zealand for serving on our credentials committee. We have 56 members who are fully paid. Here comes my help. And 15 countries who just got the right to vote, but 7 of those are not here. So if my math is correct, it would be 56 plus 8, carry the 1, 64 countries who have the right to vote. I apologize, of the 51, about the 56 who are fully paid, some of those might not be here. So it's a little bit of a puzzle, a little bit of a matrix answer, but let me ask my financial officer, of those who are fully paid, how many of them are here? Might take a little math. And the important thing is 15 countries who were 3 years or less in arrears just received the right to vote at this meeting, but 7 of those are not here. So there are 8 countries here who just received the right to vote under the decision that was taken. And there are 17 countries, not all of them are here, who owe more than 3 years and therefore did not have their vote reinstated for this meeting. Mr. Chair, again, that's a little bit all over the place. I think what we might try to do is write these up maybe around lunchtime when everyone has arrived and settled and credentials are completed, and we can provide you a fuller picture. I'll just check if there's anything, Nikki, I might have forgotten my financial officer.
Thank you, and apologies. I'm sure countries who still need to work on their credentials will be in touch with the Secretariat. I think it's not necessary to read countries in arrears at this moment, as most of the countries present here now got the voting right. But in case anybody wants any clarification, I open the floor if any countries want to intervene. I see no request for the floor, so we adjourn this agenda item 1.4 because we will hear these reports during the next days as the situation progresses. And I open the agenda item 1.5, which is meeting provisions. I will ask the Secretariat to provide details on arrangements for this meeting.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning and welcome, everyone. On the screen shortly, you will see the email addresses that we'll be using throughout this meeting. The first one is for any technical support queries that you may have during this meeting, itsupport@iwc.int. If you have any interventions at all, please send them to interventions@iwc.int. And it's quite important that if you have an intervention to send, that you include the agenda item number that it refers to. Documents at IWC.int if you require any documents for the meeting. And a new email address that we created yesterday, which is scquestions@iwc.int, which is for questions you may have from the Scientific Committee leadership. And on top of that, the Scientific Committee leadership will have a desk outside this room in the foyer where they will be able to talk to you and answer any questions you may have in the breaks. Meeting rooms, we have several meeting rooms that are available to book of different sizes. So if you write to meetingrooms@iwc.int, we will be able to arrange those for you. Documents, as ever, are on the IWC website. This year it's arranged by agenda item, and so you'll be able to pull the documents directly from the agenda item as needed. Now moving on to COVID, as most of you are aware that have arrived this morning, we have COVID restrictions in place, and quite simply, please test before arriving at the venue and bring your negative test with you to the COVID entry point where you scan your badge to be registered. If you test positive, contact the Secretariat immediately and stay in your room. Please do not come to the venue. To be inserted onto the official participants list, please scan your badge on the scanner on the door on the way into the meeting room. Otherwise, you will be missed off the participants list. And that is all from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. I open the floor for any questions or any clarifications if anybody needs additional clarification. I see Uruguay. Uruguay, please.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente. En primer lugar, felicitarlo a usted por la presidencia y también festejarnos todos por el hecho de que nos podamos reunir en presencia. Festejo esta instancia. Quiero hacerme una pequeña referencia al tema de las acreditaciones. Creo que para este tipo de reunión es importante saber qué países, la lista de los países que están acreditados y qué países tienen derecho al voto. Acabo de sentir a la secretaria que está en las instancias últimas de tener esa lista y yo pediría que se nos pasara la lista completa una vez que esté pronta, para así sabemos quiénes estamos presentes y quiénes vamos a poder votar. Muchas gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you, Uruguay. First, with regard to delegations present here, on the IWC website for this meeting, there is a list of participants that can be downloaded. Now, as Rebecca mentioned, this list is a kind of living document. So people are still arriving or have been arriving this morning, and Secretariat needs a certain time to update this list of participants. There is, of course, also a list of participants that registered for the meeting, but not all of them arrived. So with regard to the list, an update might be provided. By the end of the lunchtime. With regard to credentials, as Rebecca mentioned, this is also a moving target because some delegations still have to work on credentials. And my suggestion, if acceptable to you, would be that we also briefly come back on this agenda item immediately after the lunch break. Okay, I see nodding, so I see this proposal is accepted. Thank you. Now, any questions with regard to agenda item meeting provisions? And as I see no request for the floor, I take it's clear, but otherwise Secretariat is always available for any questions you might have for them. So they are in the room. So in case you have any questions or you need any support, please don't hesitate to contact them. With this, I close the agenda item 1.6 and we move 1.5, and we move to 1.6, which is review of the documents. The list of the documents will be available via a link, which is the link for the IWC68 meeting. I hope you all, in the meantime, so how it works. You have to open specific meetings, and then there are documents attached to the agenda items where they will be handled with. I check if Secretary Rebecca wants to add something.
Thank you, Chair. Just hope that everyone is becoming accustomed to this style of presenting the documents. It's something we've been working on for a couple of years, and we tested it at the scientific committee. And it's kind of standard across international organizations where you click on the title of the meeting and the menu drops down with the agenda, and you click on the documents and they pop open. It should be easy. If you have any issues, please let us know. I will also note that we already have revised versions that are popping up. So if you read it once, you may want to go back and make sure it is make sure you have the latest version. And we did get a request in FNA yesterday to provide more translations of the possible formal agreements with other organizations, and those are underway. We hope to get them posted soon. So look out for those translations into Spanish and French. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any questions or any interventions on this agenda item? If not, I will close also the agenda item 1.6. And thank you for effectiveness. We are a bit ahead of the agenda of the timeline, but I would continue because we might need some more time during our next days for some other agenda items. So the agenda item 2 is the adoption of the agenda. And as you probably know, the draft agenda was prepared by the chair with support of the secretariat and under guidance from the bureau. It was posted on the web 100 days prior to the opening of the meeting with a request for comments and additions. The agenda was then modified to reflect resolutions and schedule amendments and was made available to you 60 days before this meeting. So this is the proposed annotated agenda, the document that was submitted to you 60 days before this meeting, and the name of the document or the code of the document is on the screen. I open the floor with a question if we can adopt this agenda. And I will just know that agenda is not the same as a timeline. So it's this document. It's not when we will deal with which agenda item. So can we adopt the agenda? Are there any objections? I see none. So agenda is adopted. And now we are so quick that we can basically move to the scientific committee presentation. And as we are so quick, I would just like to check with the leadership of the scientific committee if their presentation is ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I hear from the head of science and management conservation that the presentation might not be ready.
Thank you. Then we will deal with this later, and a bit apologies that we were going so quick. Then I would still open the agenda item 3, so scientific committee presentation, which is composed of presentation of main recommendations and is composed of the presentation of future work plan, but is composed also of another small event. This event is to recognize Greg Donovan and Cherry Ellison, who retired from the IWC Secretariat during the long gap since IWC67. Both of them spent 4 decades, really huge period, in the IWC Secretariat and were instrumental in working with the scientific committee to establish the tools used by the IWC to support RMP, AWMP analysis that is a key to our Aboriginal subsistence whaling management. Their work is the very foundation of the review and analysis component of our mandate to manage whaling, and thus you have a really important legacy, both of you, for the scientific committee and for the IWC as a whole. Fortunately, Greg and Cherry continue to serve on the scientific committee in leadership positions and are here with us today. They will also join us during the Slovenian reception, and you will also have an opportunity to catch up with them then. I'm sure every delegation in this room wants to thank you. And my suggestion would be that we do this and recognize your work with a huge applause. I invite you to join me here on the podium, please. We have another gift for you. I hope I didn't go so fast that it's not fully fledged yet, fully ready, but I'll pass the floor to Ryan, please.
Thank you, Chair. And welcome, Craig and Terry. I'm so glad that you could be here with us today. The United States would like to take just a minute here, I'm sure on behalf of the whole Commission, to speak to you the many, many years of service and work that you have given to this Commission. Greg, your contributions to the work of the IWC and members of the Scientific Committee are immeasurable. Your leadership in the development of complex population models with a particular emphasis on incorporating scientific uncertainty for the provision of advice on conservation and management are heralded worldwide as being visionary. This work has been particularly important to management procedures for both Aboriginal subsistence and commercial whaling. Equally important has been your contribution to the professional and personal lives to the members of the Scientific Committee. Your ever-smiling presence as a role model, mentor, and good friend has made you one of the most beloved members of the IWC family over many decades. And Terry, your meticulous work in securing, assembling, and compiling whale catch records and statistics, both historical and current, serves as a foundation upon so much of the work of the Scientific Committee is based. And while often working quietly behind the scenes, your contributions are monumental, and we thoroughly appreciate all that you have done. So on behalf of myself and Dr. Nick Gales, who is behind me, we have a gift for the two of you. And I'm hoping the secretary can help display on the screen, if they're ready. For the ease of transport, we will be having this sent to your home, so you don't have to take this back physically with you. But we do have a framed image on behalf of us in the Commission to give to you both to thank you for your many, many years of service. And then I believe it will be shown shortly.
It will be set up quickly. As we have time, I open the floor for any other interventions or delegations that want to thank Greg and Sherry. Okay, I see that the slides are ready.
Yes, thank you. And so we have framed this image on behalf of Dr. Gales and myself, and we will have this sent to you. And just again, want to reiterate our thanks for so much. Thank you, Greg and Cherry.
Thank you very much. And I think this was from all the delegations again. A big thanks. You're always welcome in Slovenia, either during the meetings or outside the meetings. We don't have such a famous beer as in Ireland, but our wine might maybe compete with that one. So welcome and thank you very much for coming here. If you wish to say something. Alex, please. Sorry, I didn't see you on the screen. Apologies.
Robert is going to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Robert Sudam. I'm past chair of the Scientific Committee. And I just wanted to say, well, when I agreed to take over as chair, I was terrified. It's like, what have I gotten myself into? Trying to guide a bunch of scientists to deal with some really difficult and technical problems. And after I finished my term as vice chair, it dawned on me that everybody at the Scientific Committee was trying to accomplish the same thing. They might want different results, but everybody wanted the Scientific Committee to be successful. And one of the reasons that I felt much more comfortable is because Greg and Sherry were there with the huge depth of knowledge and the guiding hand that they provided to the Scientific Committee for decades. And so personally, I just wanted to say thanks to both of you for helping to make the Scientific Committee better and move smoothly most of the time. And but also just personally thank you for the support and the help that you provided me when I was chair. So thank you very much.
I think you have to press it.
Okay, press the button. Let's see what happens.
Well, that was very embarrassing, I have to say, but much appreciated. I was going to say, because you're so far behind in your agenda, as I anticipated, I only say about 3 words, but now talking with Andre, maybe he wants me to talk for an hour and a half to get you through to it. But don't worry, I won't. I must admit, when I started out in 1977, I never dreamt that I would stay very long in any one place, let alone the IWC, but the conservation of these great animals and the management of human activities that can affect them is something that I think we all share. I think as Robert said, maybe we all come at it from a different way, but from whatever the perspective, we all need cetaceans to be in a good conservation status. And I think that's what we've tried to do in the scientific committee, which is obviously mine and Cherry's love is to provide you with the best scientific advice to enable you to make wise decisions. Don't worry, I'm not going to preach. I realize I'm moving into Irish sermon mode. What I would like to say, though, is aside from all of the scientific side of things and the conservation and management side of things, it's been a great honor and privilege to meet and work with so many people from so many different countries, different cultures, different backgrounds. It's been an amazing opportunity, and I know I've learned a huge amount about life just from you people and all my amazing colleagues over the years in the scientific committee, sadly some of whom are not with us. But I feel I must just to close, some of you may or may not know that my beautiful wife died from cancer 3 years ago, and I wouldn't have stuck all the work and the hard times as well as the good times in the IWC without her incredible support and love and tolerance of you guys taking up so much of my time. So I would just like to pay tribute to her and to yourselves for all the great work you do. And I hope you continue to support the scientific committee as what one of you said was the jewel in the crown of the commission. I still believe it is, and I don't think you can do good conservation and management without the best scientific advice. So I hope you'll continue to give them your wholehearted support in the future. Thanks a lot.
Oh, thank you. I'm a doer rather than a speaker, so this is going to be very short. But it's been a real honour to be particularly part of the IWC Scientific Committee and to contribute to the work that the Scientific Committee has done over the years. And also to be part of the Commission as a whole, and to meet all of you and to have this opportunity to come back and say goodbye to so many friends. It's been a fantastic experience, huge part of my life. I think that's probably all I need to say. So yeah, thank you for being part of it.
So thank you both very much. Now, in order to proceed, I first have to check with our colleagues from the scientific committee if this means that the presentation is ready. Okay, and then I have another question for you. Is it meaningful that because we have half an hour that you do first half of the presentation and then the other half, or that's disruptive?
I think we can do that, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Then let's start with this. You know that scientific committee met during the previous 4 years, but the commission didn't. So that is quite an extensive report, and the colleagues from the scientific committee were working really hard to prepare a presentation now within 1 hour to show all the work that has been done. And I pass the floor to Alex, I presume. That's minister if it helps to the technical people. And I ask the technical team to open the mic of Uroš Brežan. Thank you.
Thank you. So good morning, everybody. I think we're pleased to be here reporting 4 years of scientific committee reports. This is a very unusual circumstance, obviously, because of the pandemic, and I think it's the first time that we have three or more than 4 of the scientific committee leadership up here, and we're going to share our presentations between Robert, who is the past chair, and was the chair of the scientific committee for 3 years between 2019 and 2021. And then myself and Lindsay, who are the current leadership of the scientific committee with Ian. So I'm gonna pass the microphone to Robert, and Robert's gonna start, and we will try to get through half of the presentation now. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. It is a real pleasure to be here in front of you. And to see people in 3 dimensions instead of 2 dimensions has been the case for much of the last 3 years. My name is Robert Sudan. I live in Alaska, part of the United States. And as Alex said, I served as the chair of your scientific committee from 2019 to 2021. And Alex just introduced himself, so we'll pass the mic to Lindsay and let her do the same.
Hello, everyone. It's indeed lovely to see everyone in person. My name is Lindsay Porter, the incoming vice chair. I'm following in the steps of previous. For those of you who are attuned to accents, you will know that I am from Scotland, but for the last several decades have lived and worked in Hong Kong and China.
And I misspoke, Alex didn't introduce himself, so we'll let him do that now.
Thank you, Robert. So my name is Alex Ubini. I am a delegate from Brazil. I work for the University of Washington in Seattle. I'm affiliated to the National Marine Mammal Laboratory of NOAA in the US, and I also am affiliated with Instituto Aquili in Brazil. And it's a pleasure to be here. And I'm going to hand it to Ian to introduce himself.
Thank you, Alex. My name is Ian Stammand. I'm the head of science, conservation and management, and I exceeded the illustrious Greg just as the COVID pandemic started and was thrust straight into a virtual scientific committee meeting. And Robert has looked after me ever since then, and hopefully now I'll be able to help Alex and Lindsay continue the excellent work of the scientific committee. Thank you.
So today, we have the difficult task of trying to convey what the scientific committee has done in 4 years in an hour. And so, of course, we will only give you a very high-level overview of the accomplishments of the scientific committee here in the past 4 years. But as you probably know, we have another time slot on the agenda on Wednesday, I believe, and we'll be able to cover additional materials, but we ask all of you to come talk to us and tell us what you would like more information about. And as was mentioned by Andre earlier, we will have a table out in the coffee break area, and we'll be out there. One of us or all of us will be there throughout coffee breaks. So please come by or grab us at the bar or at dinner or lunch, and tell us what you would like us to talk more about. As Mark Tandy mentioned, there is the email address that you can send questions and suggestions to us. In addition to that, there is a communication initiative that was talked about earlier this past week, and we would like your feedback on how the presentation went today. What can we do to make it better? Though we have certainly gotten suggestions in the past that the scientists tend to use jargon and use technical words. And is there a better way for us to communicate the science? So please give us your feedback on all of that. So as a reminder, the scientific committee strives to provide the best scientific advice to the commission. So we deal with science and not policy, at least officially. Of course, we all have our own views on things, but here sitting in front of you today, we're talking about what the scientific committee has done from a science perspective. So the last 5 meetings have been intriguing, and on the screen in front of you, you can see at the top of the orange box that 2018, we met at Lake Blood here in Slovenia. And the number right after Slovenia is how many people were registered for the meeting. And the number in parentheses is how many of those people were invited participants, so that weren't delegates or weren't observers. And so my first year as chair was in Nairobi, and thanks to Kenya for a great meeting venue, a really nice spot to have a meeting. But we had many fewer people register for a variety of reasons. So it was a relatively small meeting. And then, of course, the pandemic hit and we switched into virtual mode. And you can see by the numbers there, one of the huge benefits of meeting virtually is that we could have many more people participate and contribute to the scientific committee than happens in a normal year when we're meeting in person. And so it was astounding to us in 2020 when we had more than 300 people register. And then, of course, that record was blown away in 2021. We had almost 550 people register. Of course, trying to manage discussions with 500 people on Zoom isn't easy, but we gave it our best shots. And even though we met virtually, we were able to make some progress. We were able to address many agenda items that have been on the scientific committee's agenda for a long time. Although there were some that we couldn't address, especially the highly technical issues where we needed to be in person, where computing actually happened in meetings. And so even though there's some benefits of virtual meetings, there's definitely some downsides. One of the other downsides is reflected in this map. And Andre and Ellen and a few other, Julie and Musa, helped produce this map. And each of the blue dots represents where we had a scientific committee member or participant all across the globe. And so we could only meet, though, about 3 hours a day. And so there was always somebody that was having to participate in the meeting at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. And so our apologies, especially to our colleagues in New Zealand and Australia and the Western Pacific area, that it was terribly inconvenient for people to deal with the virtual meetings because of these time zones and having members in virtually each time zone. So there are benefits of virtual meetings, but there are certainly downsides to them as well, and that is one of the downsides. Okay, so the scientific committee was summarized by Greg in this way a while back. And you can divide our subcommittees, 16 of them, into different categories of what they actually do and how they interact. So in the bottom left-hand corner is the specialist support, or we often say these subcommittees help other subcommittees. They provide information that's vital for the other subcommittees or other subgroups to do their work. And so we'll get to the other groups here in a little bit, but we'll start with the science support, and we'll pass the clicker on to Alex, and he'll talk about ASI.
Thank you, Robert. So one of the main tasks of the working group on abundance estimates, status of stocks, and international cruises, or ASI, is to review estimates of abundance submitted for consideration of the scientific committee. Endorsed estimates are critical as a basis, or endorsed estimates of abundance are critical as a basis of management advice provided by the scientific committee using the AWMP or the RMP, and for in-depth assessments of managed or depleted stocks. In the last 4 years, a total of 169 estimates from stocks of 50 cetacean species in 23 regions around the world were reviewed, and then a total of 112 of those estimates were accepted by the committee. Some estimates correspond to species of great concern due to their relatively low number and poor conservation status. Endorsed estimates of abundance are included in what we call the IWC table of abundance estimates, and are made available to the public on the Commission's website. This table can be seen as the official word of the Commission on the estimated size of many cetacean populations throughout the world. And the link to access the IWC table of abundance estimates is on this slide. The committee has recently been asked to provide information on the status of whale stocks to the Commission and to the general public. In response to this request, the ASI group is working with other groups within the scientific committee to develop the status of stocks initiative. This initiative is using modeling and assessment methods to create graphics on the status of cetacean populations that are accessible to a non-technical audience. Progress to date include the design and layout of potential web pages. An example in draft format is shown here on the right of the slide for the gray whale and the vaquita. Quantitative information on current abundance and trends is shown in the form of a rainbow plot for species for which assessments are available. But if assessments are not available, we can still provide information on the status by providing information that is more qualitative in nature, which is what is shown for the vaquita. ASI is also responsible for providing advice and guidance and feedback on surveys to estimate abundance. These surveys include, for example, IWC programs such as the POWER program and SORP, the Southern Ocean Research Partnership cruises. They also include cruises from individual countries when requested, and other types of surveys that are designed to estimate population size and abundance on behalf of the committee or for information of the committee. And I am going to hand this back to Robert, and he's going to continue the presentation. Thank you.
All right, so another subcommittee that we have is stock definition and DNA. And this subcommittee primarily deals with stock structure issues, which of course are critical for making good management decisions about, groups of whales. It may not be the entire species, but it may be a specific portion. And so one of the interesting things that's happened in the last year or so, is the identification of a new baleen whale species. And that's Rice's whales. And the taxonomy was just determined that indeed this was a new species. It's a Bermudas-like whale that resides in the Gulf of Mexico. And the scientific committee agreed that it was a new species. And we'll talk a little bit more here in a bit about the status of the population and risk. So SD-DNA also spent some time in the last 4 years looking at the stock structure of North Pacific common minke whales. It refined the stock structure based on samples collected, biopsy samples, especially those collected during the IWC power cruise, and thanks to Japan for the considerable investment they make in these surveys and the information that is provided to the scientific committee to help make informed decisions. So the SC has said these surveys should continue. They're really valuable, and the SC has also provided some suggestions on how to deal with the samples and the analysis of the genetics of the DNA of those samples. Another subcommittee that is very active, has a substantial agenda, is HIM, or the non-deliberate human-induced mortality. Those are the issues that they deal with. And there's a few topics that are substantial in their agenda, and one has to do with bycatch. And the Conservation Committee's report here this afternoon will provide some additional details. But on this slide, I wanted to point out that the Scientific Committee has some important recommendations for populations that are severely impacted by bycatch. Those include the Baltic Sea harbor porpoise, Bay of Biscay common dolphins, Hector's and Maui dolphins, and the Iberian harbor porpoise. So ship strikes are another important component of the HIM agenda. And again, the Conservation Committee will talk more about this, but I wanted to highlight one of the achievements of the work that HIM has done, well, the SC has done, and that was to contribute to the rerouting of a major shipping route to avoid sperm whales in the Hellenic Trench. Okay, so there's also a few subcommittees that deal with whaling-based issues, and those are IST and ASW, and we have SP, or special permits, in parentheses here because that subcommittee, that subgroup, isn't active because none of the contracting governments of the IWC are currently conducting special permit whaling. So that is a subgroup, but it's inactive at the moment. So IST is Greg Donovan is the convener of this group. And I'm sure I'm not going to get this completely right, but I'll do my best, Greg. But IST deals with issues related to Aboriginal whaling management procedure, or Aboriginal subsistence whaling, and with the revised management procedure. And so in essence, what IST does is it reviews new information to see if the current conditions are similar to the conditions that the strike limit algorithm was tested. Okay. And so if the conditions are different, we often say it's outside of tested parameter space. And if that's the situation, if the conditions are different than what we expected, then we have to do new simulation trials, simulation testing to make sure that the strike limit algorithm is going to respond appropriately to meet the commission objectives related to conservation, and for Aboriginal whaling, meet the objective of being able to meet Aboriginal subsistence needs, nutritional and cultural needs. So some of the specific accomplishments of IST in the last few years has been the development and testing and endorsement of a strike limit algorithm for common minke whale hunts in Greenland, both East Greenland, using the previously agreed strike limit algorithm for West Greenland. As many of you probably remember, at the 2018 Commission meeting, the Aboriginal whaling scheme said that there needs to be a carryover provision and there needs to be interim relief. And so we tested those topics, and carryover is simply the use of unused strikes from previous years and applying those to subsequent years. And the strike limit indeed responds the way it should. And so carryover tested appropriately. And then interim relief relates to what happens when we don't have a new population estimate for a hunted stock. So the Commission and Scientific Committee have said we need updated information. We need a new population estimate for the whale stocks every 10 years. But what happens if the scientists can't do their job? Maybe because of funding issues or maybe because of weather issues. And so we tested to see if delaying the implementation of another quota was still okay, even if there wasn't updated information on population size. Okay, so all the Greenland strike limit algorithms, the gray whale SRA, and the call management plan all tested appropriately for carryover and interim relief, and we tested some of the other hunts previously. So we also completed the West Greenland bowhead whale implementation review. Okay, so related to IST's work related to the revised management procedure, that IST completed implementation reviews for Western North Pacific Breeders whales and North Atlantic common minke whales. It completed trial specifications for an implementation, a future implementation review for Western North Pacific common minke whales. And I'll come back to that in just a moment. And then some work was undertaken, a simulation work for the status of stocks initiative. And so that has been positive. So I wanted to come back though to the Western North Pacific common minke whale. And we used to do implementation reviews because a member country of the IWC was hunting those whales. Now that there's no member country hunting North Pacific Western North Pacific common minke whales, we have moved the assessment for that group of whales to in-depth assessment subcommittee, which we'll talk about here in just a little bit. And so I also wanted to, I don't think I need to remind everybody, but I just wanted to make sure it was mentioned and everybody is aware that the schedule amendments proposed in 2018 said that the scientific committee will provide advice to the commission about the Aboriginal subsistence whaling hunts in 2024. Okay, so we have completed the appropriate strike limit algorithms, and of course, the commission has endorsed those as well as the Aboriginal whaling scheme. But in order for us to provide advice to the commission in 2024, it's going to be essential that we meet in person. And we really can't do these reviews remotely, and so we're strongly suggesting that we're able to meet in person in 2024, or requesting that we meet in person in 2024. Also, the Aboriginal Subsistence Whaling Subcommittee receives reports from all the member nations, and so all the member nations have reported on harvests and new information. And we have been fortunate that Canada has been providing us information about the bowhead hunts in Canada. And among the other new information is a new bowhead and a new gray whale population estimate. And you can find more details on those estimates on the website or in our reports. But we concluded that there's no need for an early or an emergency implementation review, that we're within that tested parameter space that I discussed a little bit ago. And so we're in a good position to provide the commission with objective advice related to the Aboriginal hunts. And we'll be able to do that in 2024. Andre, Mr. Chair, how much time do we have? What's that? 4 minutes? Okay, well, we've got a couple more slides we can get through, I think. So our next set of groups is species-based, and I think the first ones are back to Alex, and maybe we can do those in 4 minutes, or.
So I was going to suggest that because we're starting a new section of the presentation that we stop now and continue after lunch.
Yes, thank you very much for this part of the presentation. And also because we have some technical issues and it's 3 minutes to break. We would stop now. I would adjourn this agenda item and then we continue with the second part of the presentation after the lunch break, which is at 2 o'clock. So we meet again at 2 o'clock. I will kindly ask the technicians to open the curtains so that at least now you can a bit benefit from the view so that you see where you are. And if there are any technical announcements to be made. Okay, no technical announcements. So thank you very much. And we meet here again at 2 o'clock. Enjoy your lunch.